is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.
For today's Grimm adventure, as the sun goes down, we find ourselves in Hiawatha, Kansas, where in order to properly tell this story, we have to go all the way back to October 31st, 1913. Now, I know we all know the history of Halloween, Samhain or Samhain, depending on how you choose to say it. But did you know that what we know today as modern Halloween, with parades and trick-or-treating and kids dressing up in costumes and having fun here in America, pretty much started right here in this small, quiet town in Kansas? And this wind is really starting to pick up. How fitting is it that if you look on the far end of this field, there's some kids playing with their dad. They're enjoying a nice Sunday out in Hiawatha, Kansas. Now, for whatever reason, the kids here in this town around Halloween were probably the most, what's the word? Diabolical, evil kids. From all accounts that we've read online, the townspeople called the kids here in Hiawatha in 1919 as goblins. Halloween, Devil's Night, what they called Destruction Night, they would run amok in this town, amok, destroying everything that they can, from pumpkins to potteries. They were little hellions. There was a woman here in Hiawatha who started the Hiawatha Garden Club, and they had what has been described as the most beautiful gardens and flowers in pretty much all of Kansas. Now, her name was Mrs. Krebs, Krebs, Krebs. Now tell me, doesn't that sound like a witchy Halloween name? She kind of looked the part too. She reminds me of Linda Hamilton from The Wizard of Oz. For years, the children here of Hiawatha tormented this town and the residents by destroying everything on Devil's Night, including these flower gardens, these elaborate gardens that the garden club made. And Mrs. Krebs was getting sick and tired of it. So, on October 31st, 1914, after spending an entire year of planning Halloween festivities like bobbing for apples and getting prizes together, she held what would become the longest traditional Halloween festivity and parade in the country. And it was all right here in this small Kansas town. Right now we're starting this video off in the town square for a reason, and that's because the very first Halloween party and makeshift parade happened on October 31st, 1914, right here in this square. She had a band playing here, and she invited all the town's children to come here dressed in their homemade Halloween costumes, and they arrived dragging their decorated wagons down here to the town square, which kind of became the very first Halloween parade. Jessica just reminded me that what would become the Halloween parade back then in 1914 was actually called the Halloween Frolic. In fact, they still call it the Frolic here today. It's the longest consecutive running Halloween party, if you will. They even have a Halloween queen that they crown every year. I wonder what the crown is. I wonder if they carve a pumpkin and they take that top of the pumpkin and they put it on the Halloween queen's head. I'd enter you into the Halloween queen pageant.
Oh, thank you. I hope my frolic isn't right.
Your frolic is perfect. It's top notch. At the time of recording this video, it is March. There's still snow on the ground, which means Halloween is still quite some time away. But tell me that this town doesn't give you a Halloween feel to it, right? Now, the very first Halloween party that they held here in 1914, it worked, but it didn't go exactly as according to plan. So for the next year, they planned something even bigger. I mean, you always have to outdo yourself, right? At the time of recording this, it is 2022, which means that the first Halloween frolic, the first Halloween party, the first Halloween parade, if you will, happened 108 years ago this year. Now, just like anything else when it comes to history, a lot can change, including things that happened 108 years ago. It's nice to see that this little town in Kansas still holds the tradition very dear, and they do it every single year. At some point, we're gonna have to come back out here for a Halloween in Hiawatha, Kansas. Even the county courthouse, which is behind me, gives off that spooky Halloween feel, does it not? Now, Mrs. Krebs lived here in Hiawatha all the way up until she died in 1931. And she's actually buried in a cemetery on the outskirts of town, which is where we are heading next. With the train whistle off in the background, you've been over here doing some research. What'd you find out about the town?
Well, I was looking at the information for the museum because I have a little bit of history behind everything. Unfortunately, they're closed until May, but I did find the website for the Halloween Frolic, and it looks like 2022, the theme will be Hiawatha's Haunted Harvest.
That sounds fun.
I love it. So I'm expecting a lot of pumpkins, and I can't wait to see pictures.
Now, if you learn one thing about Kansas from this video, it's flat and it's very, very windy. Now, we're standing out front of Mount Hope Cemetery, which was established in 1899. No, I didn't know that coming here. It's just right above the sign. It says 1899. Now, if you listen closely, you can hear flagpoles like this, little metal clinking here. Listen to it over the wind. Creepy, right? Now, in this cemetery, we're going to be searching for the final resting place of Mrs. Krebs, but there are a few other tombstones or mausoleums that are here that you gotta see. Now, right now, I'm walking between the flagpoles and you can hear them clanking. Right? Now, if you're wondering where Jessica is, she's straight ahead. There's this very elaborate crypt for a husband and wife, the last name Davis. Now, there's gonna be a whole bunch of really cool stuff to see over here, so I'm just gonna stop here for a second and just tell you about it. Here, let me go ahead and take a knee. Now, what you're about to see, basically, it was a husband and wife who lived here in the Hiawatha area. And very wealthy. I see you, you creepy little bat, you. Very wealthy family. But the wife, she died. And then the husband spent all of the money in making this crypt for her and for him whenever he eventually passes. Now, it was very controversial here in the town as well as in Kansas because it was during the Great Depression, but he kept at it and he spent all of his hard-earned money in creating this final resting place for him and his wife. Now, if you visit this cemetery, as you walk around the Davis crypt, there's all these different statues. I'm gonna try to show them all. Look at this. Right? Never seen anything like this before. Pretty much your entire walk around this thing are just different statues. Now, I don't know who all these people are. Now, I read online that some of them are him and some are her. Now, if we peek over the top here, you see that one in the back that's kind of kneeling and he has a wreath right next to the angel? Somebody stole his head. Hoodlums, vandals, maybe they were the ghosts of kids from 1919 or 1913 before Halloween became family friendly, coming out here and stealing the heads of some of the statues. Is the wind starting to get to you, baby girl?
It's very windy.
Right?
You can hear that sound is a flag post. That's how windy it is.
Man, we're having some pretty good luck in our latest adventures playing Cemetery Safari, basically finding the graves that we've come to look for. Now, Mrs. Krebs, her final resting place is right over here, right by this flagpole. Obviously, on the right-hand side, Elizabeth Krebs, 1848 to 1931. The lady who pretty much started Halloween as we know it in America, buried right next to her husband, John Krebs, 1842 to 1926. Man, that's pretty wild. Remember whenever we were walking through the downtown square and we were talking about how here they even have a Halloween queen pageant? Well, the first ever Halloween queen who was ever crowned, she's actually buried here in this cemetery as well. Now, in order to find the first Halloween queen, basically we had to find the last name Stearns, but it wasn't that easy. Now, here's why she was really hard to find. Her name is Willa Ruth Stearns, but her maiden name was Rice. Now, everywhere that you look online, there's all kinds of different things. You find W. Ruth Rice, W. Ruth Stearns, Willa Ruth, Willa Stearns. I mean, it's all over the place, but this is her. Willa Ruth Rice Stearns, 1893 to 1976. Now, here's something I absolutely love about this town. In order to be entered into the Halloween Queen contest, you have to be a local. You have to be somebody here from the town, which she was. Now, what's really outstanding, if you win, you actually get a scholarship that is named after her. They still honor that to this day. Jessica did a lot of research in trying to find any pictures of Ruth as the Halloween Queen during the contest, but sadly we couldn't find any. But because it's such a small town and there still are relatives and descendants living here, there's all kinds of different pictures that you can find of her in her older age, like holding grandchildren and just being happy. With that being said, thank you for joining us on another Grimm adventure, this time from Hiawatha, Kansas. The place, thanks to Mrs. Krebs, where Halloween as we know it, the traditions as we know it today, began. Happy Halloween. Oh man, that's so cool. We get to say Happy Halloween after this video.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always